Lomax was a big man, but it seemed like Jamie just kept rising and rising. He towered over everybody else in the cantina, and he was so muscular, so broad-shouldered in his buckskin shirt, that he seemed to loom like a mountain. His broad-brimmed, high-crowned, dark brown hat rested on thick, graying brown hair. The mustache that drooped over his wide mouth was the same shade. A rather large nose and deep-set, piercing eyes dominated his craggy face. He was in his 40s, but he was weathered like a mountain, too. A sheathed bowie knife was on his left hip, a holstered Walker Colt on his right. One of the mule skinner's friends swallowed hard and said, "Oh, hell, Lomax, I recognize that fella now. That's Jamie MacCallister. I don't care if he's Andrew Jackson and Davy Crockett rolled into one," snapped Lomax. "Nobody shoots their mouth off at me and gets away with it." "Those are some good men you're talking about," Jamie said. "I'll thank you not to sully their names by mentioning them again." Lomax took a step toward him, sticking out his chest and sneering. He was half a head shorter than Jamie, but almost as powerfully built. "There you go again telling me what to do. I don't like it, MacCallister, and just so you know, you don't scare me, mister, not one little bit." "The feeling's mutual, then," Jamie said with a curt nod. Despite the crowd, the cantina had fallen silent. A few minutes earlier, a girl had been dancing while a couple of hombres played guitar. Her taunting smile, her swirling midnight hair, her lush bosom and bare shoulders in a low-cut blouse, her brown flashing legs under the long skirt she twitched up as she danced, all had the men watching her clapping, whistling, and calling ribald encouragement. She backed away in the silence, retreating behind the bar, and the formally wrapped audience turned its attention to the confrontation in the corner. The man who had recognized Jamie said, "I don't know if you should be doing this, Lomax. MacCallister's fought Injuns and all sorts of bad men and has himself a big ranch up in Colorado. He ain't a man to mess with." "Well, neither am I," Lomax blustered. "Anybody with a lick of sense knows that I'm a man to stand aside from." One of the other men snickered and said, "Yeah, because you're liable to trip over something and fall on somebody, like you damn near just did a minute ago." Lomax whirled on that unfortunate soul, who probably wouldn't have said such a thing if he hadn't been drunk. The mule skinner lashed out with a big knobby-knuckled fist that crashed against the man's jaw and sent him flying through the air to land on a nearby table, which collapsed under the impact and made the men who had been sitting there topple over backward in their chairs. They shouted angrily as they scrambled to their feet, grabbed the man who had fallen on the table, even though the calamity hadn't been his idea, and started punching him. Lomax's other friends yelled and charged over to help the man being assaulted. Still more of the cantina's customers leaped into the fray. The fight spread through the room like somebody had taken steel and flint and struck a spark that landed in a pile of black powder. Lomax frowned at the sudden chaos, then turned to look at Jamie and raised his voice to declare over the uproar, "Hell, I ain't sure I want to fight you if there ain't nobody to watch, MacCallister." He jerked a hand toward the melee. "All these fools are too busy with their own scuffling now." Jamie leaned his head toward the table and said, "Want to sit down and have a cup of coffee with me instead?" Lomax scratched at his beard and pushed his lips in and out as he thought about it, and after a moment he said, "Sure, why the hell not?" A throne chair sailed through the air toward Lomax's head. Jamie reached out, the movement smooth but almost too swift for the eye to follow, and grabbed the chair before it could strike Lomax. He set it at the table and nodded. "Obliged," Lomax said. Jamie looked over at the bar, caught the eye of the proprietor, who was peering nervously over the hardwood, and raised his cup, then pointed at Lomax to indicate that the man should bring coffee to both of them. A few minutes later, one of the working girls weaved her way through the fighting, yelling crowd and set a tray with 2 cups on it on the table in front of Jamie and Lomax. "Hell of a note, ain't it?" Lomax said as he picked up one of the cups. "Yep,